We will begin with the prayer. The first prayer is, I think, a composition of Vedavyasa on Patanjali, followed by the other prayers that we usually do. यस्त्यत्वा रूपमाद्यं प्रभवति जगतः अनेकधा अनुग्रहाय प्रक्षीणक्लेशराशिः विषमविषधरः अनेकवक्त्रसुभोगी सर्वज्ञानप्रसूतिः भुजगपरिकरः प्रीतये यस्य नित्यं देवो हीशः स वो व्यात् सितविमलतनुः योगदो योगयुक्तः योगेन चित्तस्य पदेन वाचां मलं शरीरस्य च वैद्यकेन योपाकरोत्तं प्रवरं मुनीनां पतञ्जलिं प्राञ्जलिरानतोऽस्मि आबाहुपुरुषाकारं शङ्खचक्रासिधारिणं सहस्रशिरसं श्वेतं प्रणमामि पतञ्जलिं श्रीमते अनन्ताय नागराजाय नमो नमः। श्रीकृष्णवागीशयतीश्वराभ्यां सम्प्राप्तचक्राङ्कणभाष्यसारं श्रीनूत्नरङ्गेन्द्रयतौ समर्पितस्वं श्रीकृष्णमार्यं गुरुवर्यमीडे विरोधे कार्तिके मासे शतताराकृतोदयं योगाचार्यं कृष्णमार्यं गुरुवर्यमहं भजे। श्रीगुरुभ्यो नमः। Mrinalini, Mrinalini, are you there? Or does anyone know the prayer to Desikachar?
I know, ma'am.
Okay, please chant.
कृष्णसूरीदया पात्रं ज्ञानवैराग्यभूषणं श्रीमद्वेङ्कटनाथार्यं वन्देऽहं योगदेशिकम् श्रीगुरुभ्यो नमः।
Welcome to the second phase of the study of Yoga Sadhana. Sorry, Sadhanapada, the second chapter of Yoga Sutra. Today also happens to be our teacher's birthday, Desikachar's birthday. So it's a very special day for us to begin this. Of course, it's also the International Yoga Day, but for us, our teacher's birthday is more important. It's nice to see people come back from phase one, and also new people have joined. Some of you have already been studying the Yoga Sutra. It's not a text that we can study just once. Yeah, we have to keep going back to it again and again, or coming back to it again and again. So I'm very thrilled, very excited that we are starting the study of the second chapter all over again. There's so much to learn, so much to soak into. And the learning is very special because each batch, each group, each individual brings their own understanding, learning, and the learning that comes through our life context. So it's all the more richer. And often when we study the sutras, every time we say, oh, this is exactly what I want to do. This is exactly what I wanted to listen to. Yeah. And that's the beauty of the Yoga Sutra. So welcome once again to everyone. We will start with chanting the sutras from the second chapter up to 1.16. I'm going to chant once and ask Aarti to repeat after me. And you could all repeat along with Aarti, yourself muted. अथ साधनपादः
अथ साधनपादः
तपः स्वाध्याय ईश्वरप्रणिधानानि क्रियायोगः
तपः स्वाध्याय ईश्वरप्रणिधानानि क्रियायोगः
समाधिभावनार्थः क्लेशतनूकरणार्थश्च
समाधिभावनार्थः क्लेशतनूकरणार्थश्च
अविद्या अस्मिता राग द्वेष अभिनिवेशाः क्लेशाः
अविद्या अस्मिता राग द्वेष अभिनिवेशाः क्लेशाः
अविद्याक्षेत्रम् उत्तरेषां प्रसुप्त तनु विच्छिन्न उदाराणाम्
अविद्याक्षेत्रम् उत्तरेषां प्रसुप्त तनु विच्छिन्न उदाराणाम्
अनित्य अशुचि दुःख अनात्मसु नित्य शुचि सुख आत्मख्यातिः अविद्या
अनित्य अशुचि दुःख अनात्मसु नित्य शुचि सुख आत्मख्यातिः अविद्या
दृग्दर्शनशक्त्योः एकात्मता इव अस्मिता
दृग्दर्शनशक्त्योः एकात्मता इव अस्मिता
सुखानुशयी रागः
सुखानुशयी रागः
दुःखानुशयी द्वेषः
दुःखानुशयी द्वेषः
स्वरसवाही विदुषोऽपि समारूढः अभिनिवेशः
स्वरसवाही विदुषोऽपि समारूढः अभिनिवेशः
ते प्रतिप्रसवहेयाः सूक्ष्माः
ते प्रतिप्रसवहेयाः सूक्ष्माः
ध्यानहेयाः तद्वृत्तयः
ध्यानहेयाः तद्वृत्तयः
क्लेशमूलः कर्माशयो दृष्टादृष्टजन्म वेदनीयः
क्लेशमूलः कर्माशयो दृष्टादृष्टजन्म वेदनीयः
सति मूले तद्विपाको जात्यायुर्भोगाः
सति मूले तद्विपाको जात्यायुर्भोगाः
ते ह्लादपरितापफलाः पुण्यापुण्यहेतुत्वात्
ते ह्लादपरितापफलाः पुण्यहेतुत्वात्
परिणामतापसंस्कारदुःखैः गुणवृत्तिविरोधाच्च दुःखमेव सर्वं विवेकिनः
परिणाम ताप संस्कार दुःखैः गुणवृत्तिविरोधाच दुःखमेव सर्वं विवेकिनः
हेयं दुःखमनागतम्
हेयं दुःखमनागतम्
As I was chanting the sutras, I was transported to the first time I heard the Yoga Sutra being chanted, and that was 37 years ago, where Desikachar used to offer Saturday morning Yoga Sutra public lectures. And that's where my journey with Yoga Sutra started. And I had the responsibility of audio recording his lectures and transcribing them. And I didn't understand much of the lectures, but I was there to record and transcribe, and slowly, it sort of seeps into you. And the delight I feel now, remembering that, and the voice of Desikachar in my head, and feeling the warmth in my heart. Yeah, remembering him with great fondness and gratitude. Desikachar made Yoga Sutra so simple and so relevant to us. The way he taught, particularly because it was a public lecture and people could just walk off the street and come into the session. And there might be people who are just visiting the city for a few days and they would come into the session. So we had the good fortune of studying sometimes the same sutras over and over and over again. Yeah. But each time it was different because each time we are different. So I'm going to ask Lekha to sort of set the context for the study over the next 6 months.
Thank you, Saras. Welcome, everyone. I'm just going to take a moment to go back to the gallery view. Thank you. So it's been almost 2 months since we completed the first phase of our study of Sadhanapada. And this program has been special because we are looking at Sadhanapada from through the lens of healing, which at least for us at the back end has been very fascinating. In the 2 months that have passed, life has continued to unfold. There has been moments of joy, of ease. There has also been moments of grief, of challenge, of clarity, and moments of confusion and chaos. And I'm sure it has been the same for all of you as well. And I'm hoping that some of the teachings may have stayed alive for you, just as it has been for us. And others may have faded into the background. And like Saras said, this is exactly how Yoga Sutra as a text and how the study of the Yoga Sutra as a text unfolds. Because the learnings don't stop when the sessions stop. Many times I've noticed that it is in the spaces between the study and the teachings that the actual teaching starts beginning to work. Like a situation arises and we are struggling with it, and a sutra, we'll suddenly remember it. We will be on autopilot, we'll be reacting to a situation, and right amidst that reaction, suddenly a sutra will remember a sutra, and then our reaction kind of changes tone, changes texture. We are doing our work quietly, washing our vessels, cleaning up something, and suddenly a pattern that we have never noticed before will show up. And once we see it, it can't be unseen. So, what I have noticed is that life has a way of repeatedly reflecting these teachings back to us. Um, and I think that gap was necessary because it's only in the gap between sessions that all these things can happen and all these things can work within and through us. So, when today we are beginning the next phase of our study, I actually want to spend a little bit of time um, revisiting why we study this text and why we stay with this text over long periods of time, and what we hope will emerge for all of us as we journey together for another 6 months and with this text. I was told this by Saras, and I think it is true. Long back when I was a student doing the Acharya, that Yoga Sutra is one of the most comprehensive, penetrating text ever written on the nature of human mind. And it deeply looks at the causes of our suffering. In a very conventional text, conventional sense, it's not a text about healing, right? If you look at an Ayurveda text, that can be considered as a conventional text on healing. But there are very few texts in this world that explore so deeply, so carefully why human beings suffer and how clarity, balance, freedom, and well being can be cultivated through practice. For this reason, Yoga Sutra's teachings are not just valued by spiritual seekers, but by anyone who is seeking a harmonious relationship with themselves and with life. A sutra is like a seed. Within a few words lies the potential for a lifetime of inquiry, practice, and discovery. And that is why Yoga Sutra can, in some sense, never be exhausted or even understood through intellectual study alone. We have to again and again study the sutra, and every time we study it, something new is revealed. Like Saras said, the text has not changed, the words of the sutra have not changed, but our capacity to receive them has changed. I remember Saris giving this example when we were a student, that she said, the text is always available. It is our capacity. What is it? What is a container that we are taking to the text? Are you taking a bucket or are you taking a teaspoon? Right? So I feel that with every round of study, the teaspoon is slowly becoming a bucket. And I think that is the journey with the text. And over time, the text becomes like a thread and it begins to weave all our life experiences. Every new experience will illuminate the teachings, and the teachings illuminate our experience. So, what I have noticed is sometimes something that seems very simple, when you stay with it, it reveals great depth. When the first time the teacher teaches, or even the first few times that a teacher teaches, the sutras feel very theoretical. But as you continue to study with the teacher, do the practices, suddenly the what was theoretical becomes deeply personal. And that is one of the reasons that I am hooked to this text. And I'm hoping to, continue the study of this text for this lifetime. Sadhanapada is often called the chapter of practice. It is for a Vyutthana Chitta. It is for a mind that gets drawn in confusions and conflicts and doubts and questioning, and, can have moments of clarity and then completely lose it the next moment. It is for a mind like ours. And it meets us where we are. The beauty of this chapter is that it clearly acknowledges what is true for many of us, that we live with some measure of suffering, that there is conflict, there is agitation, there is fear, disappointment, grief, dissatisfaction, imbalance within us and in our lives. And these things may show up in our body, in our breath, in our emotions, in our relationships, in our habits of thoughts and behavior. And the teachings recognize that each of us arrives with a very unique history, unique circumstances, particular strengths, and particular vulnerabilities. And therefore, healing cannot be reduced to a technique or a formula. Rather than asking us, raise above your difficulties, push them away, Yoga Sutra says, come, let us sit down and understand them. When you study the Sadhanapada, it comes back to very fundamental questions. Why do I suffer? What is it that is sustaining my suffering? How can future suffering be reduced or prevented? What are the conditions that support my journey towards greater clarity, greater steadiness, greater freedom? Much of this chapter is devoted to understanding the causes of suffering and the means by which these causes can be weakened. So, when you look at it this way, healing is not just reducing symptoms of whatever suffering that we are going through. It is this gradual process of reducing all the obstacles that prevent us from living with ease, with discernment, with resilience, and with a very deep connection to our true nature. Yesterday, we had the Yoga Sadhana session. The Tapas Intensive is parallelly happening. So that's another thread that this team of Yoga Sutra for Healing is parallelly holding. And somebody in the class asked, if awareness is my nature, what is the purpose of non-awareness? Because nothing in nature is ever wasted. And I think that's a very beautiful question to hold on as we journey along in our study of Sadhanapada, because Sadhanapada does give an answer to that question. As we continue to study the Sadhanapada, as we continue to study the text, our understanding deepens. But our understanding of what? It is not just the understanding of the text, because the text is a very interesting text. It reveals to each of us what we need to know at that moment. So all of us may attend a session by Saris, and we 40 of us may have 40 different understandings that we will take from that session, because the text gives you what you need to know. So it is not an understanding of the text that we are seeking. It is an understanding of ourselves, of our patterns, so that we can stop living our life from autopilot and actually start savoring life and responding to life. The beauty of this text is, as you continue the study, what is hidden within us will gradually come into view. And when we see what is within us, it also brings with it a possibility of choice and transformation. The practices that Sadhanapada offers us, I call it practices because Sadhanapada is a chapter where there are so many practices hidden in the words. These practices help us to cultivate awareness. It helps us to refine our perception, and eventually, with practice, of course, restore balance where balance has been lost. It helps us to move from unconscious reaction to conscious response. As awareness deepens and the causes of suffering weakens within us, healing naturally unfolds. Yoga is not a tool to help us cope with suffering. It helps us understand its causes and create conditions in which healing can happen. So, this brings me to what we did in phase 1, which was Shravanam. So, traditionally, there are many stages to how we learn or how learning unfolds for us. The first step is Shravanam, which is listening. Then there is Mananam, there is reflection. And then there is Nididhyasana, which is contemplation and assimilation. Saris tells me that there are many other steps in between. And I told her when it is her turn, she can actually tell us all the steps that are in between. Yeah, but our own study of Sadhanapada started with Shravanam. So Shravanam is more than just hearing words. Shravanam is listening with attention, with receptivity and trust. Shravanam demands that for that period of time that we are in the session, we are listening, we set aside whatever we think we know, our conclusions, opinions, comparisons, assumptions. We set all of that aside and we just sit and allow the teachings to enter us. Like how a fertile soil receives a seed, quietening our mind to receive something new. But we know that this quality of listening requires preparation. So in our sessions, we wove together asana, pranayama, prayer, and moments of stillness so that the mind could be prepared to listen so deeply. we moved through each sutra during these sessions. We stayed with words, discovering what they could mean, discovering what it could mean in our life context. And I discovered as I was listening to the both the live sessions and to the recordings that listening like this itself is healing. Because when you listen like this in the class, you're practicing to listen like this to ourselves. And when we listen to ourselves like this with a very quiet, open, trusting mind, what happens is we start noticing our patterns of thought, emotions, behavior. We notice our breath. We notice our reactions that are coming up on autopilot. And we are able to notice all this, observe all this without immediately wanting to fix them or change them. So, listening like this develops also the ability to observe very deeply. And observing is a very integral part of healing. So now, when we are beginning the next phase, which is Mananam, I feel like the last 2 months have prepared us for this. So during Shravanam, we listened. And in the last 2 months, life has been reflecting these teachings back to us. Now we are returning to this space. We are carrying fresh experiences, new questions, and perhaps a different capacity to receive. Maybe the teaspoon has become a tablespoon. Yeah. So, what is Mananam? Mananam is this process of revisiting. We are going to revisit the recordings. If every session, we are also going to summarize what was there in the recordings. And we are going to reflect as we move and, move around in our everyday lives. We are constantly going to reflect. And we are going to explore the teachings more deeply. So, if Shravanam is the planting of the seed, Mananam is nurturing of that seed, giving it water, making sure it has enough sunlight, maybe building a small fence around it so that some random animal does not come and dig up our seed, and hoping that that seed will become a seedling. That is what we are hoping that will happen for all of us in the next 6 months. So in Mananam, we are going to still use our intellect. We are going to make connections. We are going to connect ideas from one sutra to the other. We are going to connect ideas from the sutra to other texts, whatever we have studied and stayed with. We are going to examine our assumptions. We are going to wrestle with our doubts. We are going to seek clarity. So questions are very, very important. So what is it that we are hoping you will bring into this space of Mananam? We hope that you will bring your questions, you will bring your doubts, you will bring your reflections, you will bring whatever at that point is making sense to you or not making sense to you. You bring your confusions, you bring your conflicts, because they are part of our learning. We are hoping that many of you will revisit the recordings of our earlier sessions, the Shravanam phase, over the coming months. Maybe you have already listened to it. Maybe you are hoping to listen to it in the 2 weeks gap that is there between two Mananam sessions. As you listen again, you may discover that a sutra that you heard 6 months ago now speaks very directly to a situation that you're currently facing. You may discover that a teaching that seemed very straightforward when we were in the session last time suddenly is having many more layers of meaning that we did not see at that time. something that did not resonate at all during the Shravanam phase, and I was like, what are you talking about? Suddenly is deeply meaningful. And I'm like, why did I not, grasp it the last time? And that is what we are hoping Mananam will do. During the first phase, we spent a lot of time understanding the sutras themselves because it was important to set the context. But in Mananam, we are hoping to stay more deeply with the healing perspective. Together, we'll explore how these teachings illuminate our own understanding about suffering, resilience, well being, all of these things that words that we keep throwing, but what do they actually mean? And it is only through inquiry that we can understand this text deeply. So, through the sessions and through the WhatsApp group that we have created, we hope that you will continue to share your difficulties, your moments of insights, all of those with us. Because that is the fertilizer, that is the manure that is nurturing our own study and exploration of this text. And all the teachings will come from there. And when we finish this 6 months of Mananam, we are also hoping that these 6 months will prepare the ground for Nididhyasana, that is contemplation and assimilation. Just as a food that is digested has to be assimilated to become part of the body, we are hoping that this teaching becomes part of who we are. We don't just think about it, we don't just study it, we begin to see life through it, we begin to act through it, and we begin to live from it. That the truth that Yoga Sutra holds, it starts revealing through real life experience. That this understanding takes root and our relationship with suffering changes. We are hoping that it changes the way we hold suffering. It changes the way we hold our responsibilities and our challenges and our difficulties and the way we hold ourselves. We hope that the old patterns will loosen up a little bit and healing becomes possible, not only in how we feel, but in how we meet life itself. But before we continue with Mananam, I want you to just close your eyes, allow your body to relax. See if you are able to find a little bit of stability, ease in your body, a little bit of steadiness, a little bit of stillness. Inviting your attention back to your breath. Just watching as your breath moves in and out of your body, and how the breath moves in your body. And as you flow with the breath, the mind starts becoming quieter and quieter. And I want you to think back over the last 2 months. Was there a particular sutra or even a word from a sutra or a teaching or a practice, anything from our study that stayed with you? as we begin this second phase of study, get in touch with what is your aspiration for Mananam? What brings you here? What do you hope to understand more deeply? And just really connect with your aspiration, your intention that has brought you here. When you feel ready, gently open your eyes. And if you can type in on the chat box, what is the one sutra or phrase or practice that stayed with you, and what is the aspiration that brings you here for Mananam? If you could just type it in. Thank you everyone for sharing. Every message is so inspiring. So what we will do now is, like I said, between Shravanam, Mananam and Nididhyasnam, I skipped a few steps. Saras, being my teacher, will guide us back through to the steps that I skipped and missed. And also to really look at what is a sutra and what is the beauty of a sutra. Saras?
Thank you, Lekha. I will begin with the sutra and then come to the steps. So, as you were talking about the Yoga Sutra and the healing perspective, the thought that came to me is Yoga Sutra itself is like an Aushadham, it's a medicine. My Vedanta teacher called Bhagavad Gita Vyasa Aushadham, the medicine given by Vyasa. So we can say Yoga Sutra is a Patanjala Aushadham, the medicine given by Patanjali. Patanjali does not claim the authorship of Yoga Sutra. Right in the very first sutra, he says, I am just a compiler. I've just put together the wisdom of, the ages and the experience of teachers and practitioners and healers has been condensed into 195 aphorisms. The sutra style is a very special style. Okay, and somebody who can compose a sutra is cannot be an ordinary person who just has a understanding of the language and the expertise in communication. Cannot compose a sutra. They say anybody who is able to compose the sutras has to have an aspect or carry an aspect of the divine in them. And Patanjali is supposed to be carrying the aspect of, according to the Vaishnavite tradition, Vishnu. He was the incarnation of Ananta, the thousand-hooded serpent, which was the bed of Vishnu. Vishnu had a very luxurious lifestyle, apparently. Shiva was not like that. Shiva was roaming around. He was, taking care of the crematorium and just all of that. But Vishnu was laying down with his consort Lakshmi in this milky ocean, and the couch was Ananta, and Ananta was sent to the earth to offer Yoga Sutra in the form of Patanjali. So we will do that story at some other point. The idea is to see the Sutrakar, one who writes the sutra or composes a sutra, as somebody who carries an aspect of the divine. And in that sense, we could say that when we study with a teacher, like we all studied with Desikachar, and Desikachar studied with Krishnamacharya, and we are also continuing to study with other teachers who have studied with Krishnamacharya, right? And when we study, when we imbibe this from a teacher, we are also carrying an aspect of the teacher within us. Okay. Of course, it is like what Desikachar taught was different, and how I experienced it and understood it, and what I have taken from his teachings is a tiny bit, maybe like a drop in the ocean. But even that drop is a huge drop. I could swim in that drop, and I know that drop is not separate from the ocean. It is the ocean. It carries the essence of the ocean. So that is the idea of a sutra. It's something that's coming from beyond. It is not a creation of the human mind, but it is for the human mind. And therefore, it can only be composed by a mind that understands suffering. All the great siddhas, the great yogis, were also essentially healers. So we have a very strong tradition in South India, particularly in Tamil Nadu, that talks about the Siddha tradition. There are many Siddhas. who walked on this earth, who were great yogis. Siddha means one who has acquired great powers. Okay? And these powers are talked about in the 3rd chapter of Yoga Sutra. Siddhar or Siddha is also the tradition of medicine. Okay, so these yogis were also essentially healers. One is, if I have to follow the spiritual path to to move in the direction of understanding what is the highest possibility and potential of the human mind, and to be able to stay with the rigor of practice and inquiry to acquire that, we have to live in very difficult conditions, years and years and lifetimes of study and exploration. So one has to have a healthy body. One has to have a stable, clear mind. And that requires that we understand healing, because the nature of the body and the nature of the mind is to develop illness or disturbances. So unless one has a capacity to quickly heal oneself, it is not possible to continue on this path. So therefore, healing is an integral part of study. You cannot separate it. And every time Desikachar talked about Yoga Sutra, he always brought the healing perspective. Maybe that's what really helped people like me to move in the direction of healing, because for me, more than anything else, any other aspect of yoga, healing is a very important thing. Like whether somebody is coming with a headache or a back pain or a depression, whatever that is, just to see if we can offer something that will make them feel slightly better, make them feel empowered, make them feel the confidence that I can live life and I can move on with it and I can heal myself. That confidence is what yoga gives, and that confidence is what Yoga Sutra gives. Yeah, and that's why for me this is a very, very dear topic. And of course, Lekha and many of people that we work together carry this aspiration and carry this dream together. And thank you for all joining, because I think this makes this whole field more energized. So we'll begin with looking at what is a sutra. Okay, if you go back to the recording, these are there in the first round, but I'm just going to reiterate a few aspects today. Sutra essentially means a thread. Okay, a thread with which you could string, like in India, we string a garland of flowers. And you can see the garland, you can see the colorful flowers, and you can, feel their fragrance and all of that. But the thread is invisible. You can't see the thread until the flowers wither away, and then there is only the bare thread. That is a sutra. So that's something which is invisible, that connects, that links. And sutra also means that which shows you a direction. Suchayati iti sutra. Another meaning of the word sutra is that it points to a direction. It shows you a direction. It says move in that direction. That is a sutra. Okay. And when we're talking about this thread, it is not just a thread. A thread in which we weave together many ideas, many concepts, and there is a order in it. There is an inherent order in which the sutras are woven together or threaded together. And often in the beginning, for me, even now, some sutras from the 3rd and 4th chapter, I don't understand the order. And I don't understand why Patanjali brought this sutra after that sutra. But if we really study the sutras, when we are discussing one sutra, somebody will ask a question that will point you to the next sutra. And then some other question will come that will point you to the next sutra. So that inherent order and the beauty of that order is an essential aspect of the sutra text. Okay. So as we study, we will discover this beauty of this order. We will discover the direction it is pointing out to. And as we walk the path, we will know that each step will take us to the next step. So every chapter in the Yoga Sutra, there are four chapters. Every chapter is called a pada. Pada means step. So it just says take one step at a time. Okay, and that step will reveal to you the next step. We don't need to know everything about everything. And in a sense, the first four sutras give you the summary of the entire text. So we have dealt with the first four sutras in the last phase. Please go through the recordings, because there's no point in going through the same thing over and over again. We need to progress. Okay, so this idea of a sutra is very important. That which is hidden, that which is a thread that links, and that linking, there is an inherent order and beauty to it, and it is pointing to a certain direction. And it's the direction of clarity, the direction towards healing. And healing also has to be understood as different from curing a problem. Yeah, we are not looking at saying, okay, so I have this problem, what sutra will help me to understand? It's not about fixing the mind, it's not about fixing ourselves, it is about understanding, like Lekha was sharing. And healing is about becoming whole, becoming complete. The sutras will actually show us the so many fragments we are made up of. There are so many millions and millions of parts we are made up of. Some parts get revealed, more parts remain hidden, and we don't know. As we continue to study this over and over again, more and more parts will get revealed, and we begin to see that these parts often operate in opposition with each other, and that causes suffering. Yeah. So even if I take a simple problem like a health issue, I know that that is a very temporary issue. But then, let's say I catch a cold, or my throat gets affected, and I have to teach, or I have to chant. And so one part of me is saying, okay, I have to rest my throat. Simple. Yeah. You have to do what you need to do. You have to rest your throat. Maybe you have to cancel your session or ask somebody else to do it. Another part will say, you are a yoga teacher. How can you have a throat problem? That is not, what will people think about you? Yeah. Two parts in opposition, right? One part which is identified with this idea of a yoga teacher and who I should be. And another part which is simply saying, just accept it. No? Why can't you simply rest and heal yourself? Like this, millions of parts are operating. And when we learn to recognize these parts, we also learn how to harmonize them through practice. Practice is integral, because without practice, I don't think we can study the Yoga Sutra or understand the Yoga Sutra. The mind is not even ready for it. And slowly, through practice and inquiry, we will be able to bridge the gaps. Slowly, these voices that are shouting against each other will begin to listen to each other quietly. And when they begin to listen to each other, when the Shravanam happens within us, then the healing direction will be shown. And that is the hope of studying the sutras. So we will keep coming back to the healing perspective again and again. I also wanted to look at the different qualities of a sutra. Okay, we have seen this briefly in the last session, but I'm going to ask Lekha after I share to also see how to look at these qualities from the perspective of healing. There are 6 qualities, and not all sutra texts actually fully meet the requirements of what a sutra should be like, or a sutra text should be like. And I have heard Desikachar say that Yoga Sutra meets it 200%. Okay, all the qualities. The first quality is Alpa Aksharam, which means it carries very few words. Brevity is the hallmark of a sutra. Okay, very less words, so there is no pronoun, suffix, conjunction, none of that. It doesn't follow any grammatical rules. It's just words strung together. And these words, the reason why it's Alpaksharam is so that you can commit it to memory. And so remember that in the face of Shravanam and Mananam, we have to really focus on also chanting the sutra so we internalize this text completely. When we were taught to chant, and the meaning is only revealed after you have learned to chant it by heart. At least some of the later chapters. We were not even allowed to come into a class to study until we have learned the sutras by heart. And that was a good practice because it allowed us to come back to the sutras again and again. Yeah, Alpaksharam, characterized by brevity. The second quality is asandigdham. Asandigdham is there is no ambiguity. Yeah. So whether you look at the sutra itself or the different commentaries of the sutras, when we study it or the way it is taught by the teacher, it doesn't create any kind of doubt in the mind. It's not like one idea is opposing another idea. Asandigdham. Sutra itself should have that quality of not creating ambiguity in our mind. Okay. The third quality is Saravat. Saravat, Saram, if you put it on the other side, is Rasam. Yeah, so Rasa and Sara. Sara is the essence. Rasa is also the essence. So Saravata means that which is full of essence. Yeah. And so one has to really touch the very core of it and taste it. That is Saravata. In one of the Upanishads, it says, it begins with the line, Rasa vai Saha. Saha, that, the higher being, the higher intelligence, the nature of that is rasa. So Saravata means when we touch the essence of a sutra, we are actually touching the essence of the highest intelligence. That is the life that is strung in the sutra. Then the next quality is Vishwato Mukham. It is a text, a sutra is supposed to, every sutra is supposed to embody the universal truth. So that which applies to all human beings across ages. So what was true more than 2,300 years ago is still relevant because human mind has not changed much. We are evolving, of course, but still the problems of the mind continue. So universal in its understanding. Yeah. For all ages, for all times, for all people, it doesn't differentiate or discriminate. That is the beauty of the sutra. Yeah. And it, mukham also means face. Vishwato mukham means it has a face for everyone. So the face of the sutra, F-A-C-E, okay. The face of the sutra does not change. It keeps showing you different faces at different times. And that face is important for you to see. And what is that face? It's our own face. It's like a mirror for you to look at yourself. And the face keeps changing. Okay? We can just look at a sutra and look at ourselves. Like every bead is like a mirror. Astobhyam. Asti bhava. So this is connecting us to this idea of Shravanam. When I listen with the bhava or the attitude of this is true. Okay. Without any doubt in my mind, when I listen to the sutra, I say this should be true. There is no doubt about it. So astobhyam means the communication of the sutra has been born out of experience. Okay. And with conviction, we can say it is so. So it is. Yeah. It is very definitive because it has been experienced. And so because the sutra, if the sutra carries the strength of experience in it, then there need not be any doubt about it. Maybe I have not understood it enough to get the essence of it. Maybe it will take a long time for me to understand, but it is so. Yeah, I can simply trust it. And the sixth quality is anavadyam. Anavadyam means there is nothing derogatory, there is nothing that is in the sutras which uh, is not dignified. So it's a very dignified presentation. It will not and should not hurt the sentiments of anyone. Yeah. So this is why I wanted to differentiate it from many other sutra texts that we do study. They may not carry all these qualities, even though they are in the sutra form. So some texts, we actually sometimes we can even get very offended. Like Ayurveda, some of the texts will say during summer you should avoid something, and also women. What do you mean? So is it written for men that you're saying you should avoid women in summer? Like it's saying you should avoid too much of sexual act in summer, but it says women. Okay, that is not anavadyam. But Yoga Sutra does not have any statement, does not have even a single word that can hurt the sentiments of anybody on this earth. Okay, that's the beauty of the text. And then we also have many kinds of sutras. Yeah, the first line of a sutra text will actually also tell you what is the kind of sutra that we are talking about. Yeah, one is called an Anushasana Sutra. So, Atha Yoga Anushasanam. Anushasana Sutra is that which we have to follow, practice, experience, and understand. Not all sutra texts are like that. Okay. Anushasana Sutra has to be followed, practiced, and experienced. You can only understand it through your own experience. Intellectually, to some extent, we can begin to understand the text, but as we experience life, if we go back to the sutras, then we understand the sutras better, as we understand ourselves better. The second kind of sutra is called a Vyakhyana Sutra. Vyakhyana Sutras, for example, like Dharma Sutras. So they have to be explained in a special way. That is a Vyakhyana Sutra. Then the third kind of sutra is called a Jigniasa Sutra. Like Brahma Sutra is a Jigniasa Sutra. So Brahma Sutra begins with the statement, Athato Brahma Jigniasaha. Atha Yoga Anushasana. 3 words. Atha always begins, and we have dealt elaborately with Atha in the last round. So please go back to the recording. Then the topic or the subject matter of the sutra text, and then what kind of a sutra text it is. Yeah, Jigniasa Sutra, Brahma Sutra, where we have to do deep inquiry, and here the intellect is very actively involved. Of course, the mind has to be clear to grasp something and to stay with it and to go through it over and over again. This is a Jigniasa Sutra. And then there are other texts called Vivarana Sutras. Vivarana Sutra, where something is explained in great detail. Yeah, nothing is left to, even the commentaries are just elaborations of it. So if you take the some of the Ayurvedic texts, they are called Vivarana Sutras. So if it will talk about qualities of Vata or Pitta or Kapha, and all the qualities will be listed in detail. Yeah, nothing is left to your imagination. This is the idea of the different kinds of texts. Anushasana Sutra, particularly, the learning process is very well defined. And this is where, when we were studying with our teacher, at different points of time, he would present this order differently. Very simple order is just that Shravanam, Mananam, Nididhyasanam, Pravachanam. Pravachanam is to teach once you have learned, internalized, assimilated it. When you're ready, you start teaching or sharing the learning. But there are many intermediary steps. I don't know exactly the source of all these steps, but this is how we were taught. Again, beginning with Shravanam, you listen, and Lekha has already spoken about it. The second step is called Grahanam. Grahanam is to grasp it. Yeah, grasp what is being taught. So when I listen, depending on my state of mind, some things will sink in very deeply. Like today, Lekha asked you what stayed with you, and you shared different sutras, different ideas from the sutra. That is what we were able to grasp and hold on to. Not everything that is spoken about one can grasp. In fact, if you go back to the same recording over and over again, I do that when I study with my teacher. I would have listened to it the 10th time and said, my God, I never heard this 9 times. I never heard this one thing. And the 10th time it will come. That is Grahana. So you have grasped it. You're not trying to grasp it. Something will settle inside you. Grahana. Dharanam is the third step. Dharanam, dharana. Dharanam is to hold it. So once I have listened and then I have assimilated, taken something, and then I learn to hold it in a very special way. Yeah. And dharanam is to hold it in a way that it will stay with you forever. I'm saying not just for this lifetime. Okay. I want to hold the sutras for all the lifetimes to come. That is the way you hold it. Dharanam. Then the mananam. Yeah. So the mananam is the reflecting, the chanting, the remembering, the contemplation, committing it to your memory over and over and over again. Yeah. Mananam. Then abhyasa, practice. So whatever I have reflected on, I put it to practice. It is not enough that we have these great, fantastic insights into the Yoga Sutra, yeah, into our life itself. But these insights have to translate into practice. Otherwise, they will just come and go. Yeah, it can be very short-lived. We don't even remember some insights. Sometimes when I'm chanting the sutras, between the words, an insight will pop up. And then I have to go on, right? I have to go to the next sutra. So I'll say, okay, let me remember this. It will be lost usually. So the abhyasam is very important. Nididhyasanam, the next one. Nididhyasanam is where you do dhyanam on it. Dhyanam, so dharanam, mananam, abhyasam, then the dhyanam comes. It's a deeper contemplation. You're continuously staying with it. Like, it's not even, mananam is like chewing the cud, right? Nididhyasanam is you're digesting it and assimilating it and taking it to every part of yourself. Yeah, it becomes part of you. And part of Nididhyasanam is Anubhavam. There is an experience of it. Okay. And from Anubhavam, Pracharanam or Pravachanam comes. From the experience, one learns to share. And let me tell you right in the beginning, a lot of what we are going to learn in the sutras are not fully in our experience. To some extent, we can experience. There are many things which are beyond our experience. But when we share, we also have to learn to sift through what is not in my experience and what is in my experience. I have to have that clarity. Yeah. I can talk about samadhi and give you all the different kinds of samadhi and intellectually explain it with a reasonable level of clarity that you might think, oh, maybe she has experienced that samadhi. Never, I have not touched many of, or maybe basic levels of understanding samadhi is there, that's all. But still we should be able to explain it, right? So the anubhavam is an important aspect of pravachanam. And also to know what is in our anubhavam and what is yet not in our anubhavam or experience. Okay. So this is what I wanted to share. Where shall we go from here?
We could go back and look at those 6 qualities and see how we could look at healing through these qualities. So you were right, Saras. I mean, every time I listen, I have heard you teach these 6 qualities many times for the last, a decade and a half, and yet it feels new. It feels fresh. It feels like I've not heard this before. And as you were, before I go to the 6 qualities, I just wanted to say that as you were doing Shravanam Grahanam, I also felt that in the context of healing, so in our tradition, healing happens a lot in our interaction with the teacher. We have a challenge and we go to a teacher, and then the teacher guides us through with the practice and all of that. But as I was listening to you, I was also realizing that in the context of a student teacher relationship also, it's the same thing. The teacher listens very deeply to what we share. The teacher actually, then it comes down to what the teacher has grasped, what grahanam has happened, not just the grahanam of what I am sharing, but also what all they have learned from their teachers and all of that. So, this whole Shravanam, Grahanam, Dharanam, everything I can also see in how a teacher student relationship is held in this tradition. So, it just stood out for me. So, I just wanted to say that simply because I have heard this so many times, and yet I had never thought about it. But today, when I was listening to you, it just revealed itself in some way. So, um, when uh, when we look at the 6 qualities of the sutra, essentially these are 6 qualities of communication. Yeah, and communication is the fundamental component of building a relationship. Okay, so communication could be verbal, non-verbal, whatever. But if you look at any relationship, communication is very important part of that relationship. So in when you look at uh, communication, you have speaking, you have listening, you have being questioning, and being able to hold silence for the other to unfold themselves. So, all these are parts of communication. And so, these 6 qualities of a sutra is essentially telling us how do I communicate, and therefore, how do I build relationship. And I don't know, today, probably because it is Desikachar's birthday, or maybe because this is my favorite definition of yoga, Desikachar said yoga is a relationship. Yeah. So I was thinking, I woke up with this idea that healing is also a relationship. We have many, many fragments of ourselves, and the fragmentation happens in response to when life happens to us. And healing is about us being able to bring all these fragments together in a seamless, harmonious way. So essentially, healing is us developing a relationship between the different fragments, and the fragments developing a relationship with that part of us which is able to unconditionally accept and see these fragments. So there is a part of us which is like how when they were chanting the sutras, it is Nitya, it is Suchi, it is, uh, Sukha, it is anchored in Atma. So there is a part of us that is capable of looking at all other parts of ourselves with awareness, with unconditional acceptance, if I may stretch it and say with unconditional love. So healing is about the fragments resolving themselves and also developing a deeper relationship with this part of ourselves which can hold them all together. So in that sense, healing is about how we build a relationship with our experience, how we build a relationship with our thought, with our emotions, with ourselves, and therefore with others and with life itself. And therefore, communication being the most important ingredient of a relationship, all these six qualities also is very integral to our healing journey. So, I mean, imagine any example of when we suffered, right? Uh, Something as simple as somebody says something hurtful, or something doesn't go according to our plan, or there is a sudden change in the body which is making us uncomfortable. Whatever, any one of these, we get a diagnosis or anything. The first thing that does not happen is our mind stops behaving like a sutra. The minute there is suffering, all our old wounds get triggered, fears get awakened, then we have thoughts, then we have stories around those thoughts, then we start predicting what will happen in the future, we will worry about what happened in the past. And I think this is the kind of situation where these six qualities can become like a mirror for us to observe what is happening within ourselves. So the first quality is alpa aksharam, very few words. Now, the first thing that happens when there is suffering is verbosity. We tell ourselves stories and stories and stories, and so alpa aksharam is the first thing that stops happening. Yeah. So have you noticed, like, when something difficult happens in our lives, okay, how very quickly we move beyond what actually happened? Imagine, like, your friend walks past you without acknowledging you. Okay, imagine that. So what will happen? That event of them walking past us without looking at us is a few seconds. Yeah. But then our mind will spend hours, even days, elaborating upon it. We'll add explanations, we will add assumptions, we will add predictions. This is what they will do tomorrow. Yeah, we will add our fears. And before long, we are no longer responding to the event. We are responding to the story that we have constructed around the event. So then what would healing look like? Healing would look like asking a very simple question: what actually happened? Not asking what will I fear, what is my fear, what is my imagination of what happened, but simply saying what actually happened. Okay, when we ask that question, we can see that actually the event was far more simple than we realized. And I think this is also uh, very important when we work with a teacher, or when we are the teacher. Like, I remember having a conversation with Saras a few years back. I spent 1 hour complaining about something. I cried, I wept, I was very bitter. I did all of that. She only asked me one question at the end of it, and that was enough. It was like one question, and then it was like a light switch turned on, and all my storytelling was set aside, and I was able to go back to the event and see what it was. So, alpa aksharam. So, when I am listening to my own stories that I have constructed around an event, can I ask myself what actually happened and stick to the actual event that happened? And can I respond from that understanding? And can I bypass or cut through the narratives that I have created around it? Asandigdam, free from ambiguity, right? So, if you look at many of our difficulties, many of the suffering, most of it arises from the assumptions that we make. Okay, and we mistake assumptions for a fact. Like, for example, somebody calls, messages us and says, we need to talk. Okay, Imagine your partner or, your boss messaging you, we need to talk. That's it. The mind will fill in all the blanks. Yeah. And the mind will supply a reason. Mind will then interpret it based on our past experience and our future anxieties. So, in that context, a very useful inquiry is to say, what do I know directly for a fact? And what is it that I am assuming? Even asking this question, what is it that I am assuming? And what is the actual fact here? What is it that I truly know? Can help us cut through again this storytelling mechanism that is very operational in my mind. Saravat. Saravat means that it contains the essence, it's full of essence. So, a lot of times, for example, when we are having an argument, we are very focused on the surface level things of what is happening, right? We will argue, we will be angry, we will be disappointed, we'll be frustrated, all of that. But what is it that is there beneath the surface? Something that is much more fundamental, which is actually asking for our attention. Like, let us say that somebody close to us is angry with us. One is to focus on the anger, but actually, the anger may conceal hurt. So, can we dip into the essence of what the person is saying and not just the superficial words? When we feel somebody is controlling us, for example, can we dip a little and see the fear behind the control? We feel somebody is too, perfectionist. I get this a lot. Yeah. But can we look at the vulnerability that lies beneath that need for perfection? So, Saravat is an invitation to not merely react to the surface level, um, surface level movement or the disturbance, but to actually become curious and say, hey, what is actually happening here? What is asking to be seen? What is the true essence of this experience? Vishwatomukham. This is my favorite. Vishwatomukham is something that is universal. And I think one of the reasons why the Yoga Sutra has endured so many centuries is because I think uh, I can't even connect to the era in which Patanjali compiled these sutras. But to me, in this world that I live in, it feels very true, right? So, as human beings, every one of us encounters uncertainty. It may come dressed up in different garb, but all of us encounter uncertainty. All of us struggle with attachment. All of us struggle with loss, with change, with fear, with disappointment. And whenever we are suffering from one of these, the mind will narrow its view. It will say, why is this happening to me? Why me? But when you study the text and when you work with this text and when you remember that if you widen your lens a little bit, we are simply participating in something that is deeply and profoundly human. It's a human experience. It doesn't mean that our personal experience is not important. It is. But we are not alone in experiencing this. Every human being goes through the same set of struggles in different forms and formats, in different contexts, but the struggle is very, very deeply human. And this wider perspective is very useful because one of the first things that happens when we suffer is we also start feeling isolated. Just knowing that this is something that human beings have always experienced and will continue to experience, and therefore as much as I am suffering, I am not alone in this suffering. Is very important, because this is what pushes us to actually go out and seek help for ourselves. It gives us hope, but it also means that there might be other human beings on this planet that I can reach out to, who has already gone through this and may have valuable insights to offer me. The fact that others may have gone through this and survived and thrived gives me hope to work with myself. So, Vishwatomukham, Asthobhyam, the way I like to look at it is free from unnecessary additions. Yeah. Uh, like if you look at a sutra, there is nothing unnecessary in a sutra. Every word is full of meaning. Every word is necessary. There's not anything there that is unnecessary. So when we look at our own suffering, we have to look at what is it that has added to my suffering. See, one is, let's say that I have a physical pain. Okay, I cannot negate it. It is there. I am experiencing pain. But then what am I adding on top of this physical pain? When I add victimhood, why me? This happens only to me. See, everybody is having fun. I am here lying in my bed and, feeling sorry for myself. I add fear. Oh, now that I am unwell, will this never get cured? Will I always be like this, stuck in my bed while others are living their life? What will happen to my family? What will happen to my career? So I've gone on a tailspin. So pain is there and it's part of the human condition. But all the other things that I pile up on top is optional. I can opt out of it. Yeah. So comparison, blame, self criticism, self judgment, worrying about the future, replaying the past, layer on layer on layer. Can I see what I'm adding on top of the existing pain? So maybe healing is simply not adding these layers, or when I release a story, or when I release an assumption, or release my fear of the future and just say, let me just stay with the pain now and see what I can do about the pain now, what will give me comfort now. Maybe if we can do that, then we don't have to unnecessarily suffer. So the question that this poses is, what can I release that is no longer serving clarity? So I'm seeking clarity. What is it that is no longer serving clarity? Where am I adding additional layers of suffering on top of the existing one? Yeah. Then anavadyam, non-harming. So I have, as a teacher, your students are your best teachers. As much as I love my teachers, I think I've learned more from my students, because sometimes a student will come and sit in front of me and there will be this whole river of complaints about themselves. They are so harsh with themselves. And I'm like, but you're a wonderful human being. Can you not see it? Can you not see that you're doing the best under very, very difficult circumstances? And no, they can't see it. And and as I'm journaling after the class, because we've been taught to document our classes. So as I document my classes, I'm like, okay, I'm also like this. So this quality of speaking with harshness, we would never direct that kind of harshness towards another human being, most of us. Our mistake may be small, the inner criticism is enormous. The suffering that the event itself causes may be this much, but we have multiplied it by suffering created through our own self judgment and our own, criticism, feedback of ourselves. So, can I ask myself, how do I hold the truth of the event or whatever is causing me pain? How can I hold this truth with the spirit of ahimsa? So it goes back to the yama. Can I be truthful? Can I also be can I also hold it with the lightness of ahimsa? Can I see my error or my mistake without attacking myself for it? Can I acknowledge what is difficult without adding violence to that experience? Can I be honest and compassionate to all fragments of myself at the same time? And I think this is the beginning of healing, right? Where I'm able to see a part of myself that is not very pleasant to see, but can I see it with compassion? Can I see it without adding further layers of criticism on top of it? So I feel that all these 6 qualities, which is essentially a quality of how a sutra must be to truly be a sutra, it's also something that we can internalize as a framework for how can I be. Either when I'm healing myself, how can I be for myself? But whether when I'm working with a student, how can I hold these qualities in my relationship with my student? That so that when difficulties arise, I might be able to ask, am I adding more to the situation than is actually present? Am I clear about what I know and what I am merely assuming? Have I touched the deeper in issue beneath my immediate reaction? Can I recognize this as a part of the larger human experience? What unnecessary additions can I release? Is my relationship with myself aligned with Satyam and Ahimsa, with truth and non harming? If I'm able to hold these questions as I go through life, I can then more and more deepen my relationship with different parts of myself. And the different parts may be more comfortable, they may feel more safe to show themselves and resolve into the whole again. So, like anything connected with the Yoga Sutra, even these qualities can become a very beautiful mirror. So, every quality, like every bead in the Yoga Sutra, can actually become a mirror to see if I am deeply aligned with myself, and am I able to move from confusion to clarity, from reactivity to understanding, and therefore from suffering to a sense of greater freedom. Saras, would you like to?
Thank you, Lekha. I think that is a very beautiful way of looking at the 6 qualities of the sutra, weaving the healing perspective into it. I just wanted to add a couple of things. One is in these sessions, because it's going to be on healing, we will bring some simple case studies to sort of elucidate some concepts or ideas. If these case studies will be presented in a very terse manner, because we don't want to go too much into the details. At the same time, to also know that this space is not a space for group therapy. Okay? We are not, of course, we come with our problems, we listen, we work with it. But I would suggest, or I would strongly recommend, please don't bring your very personal issues into this space and talk about it. Just share only what is most comfortable for you. And sometimes it may be comfortable for you, but it may not be so comfortable for other people. So if you're working with something very deep, I would strongly suggest work with a teacher, a therapist who can listen to you and help you to navigate that process. And let us not look at this space as a group therapy space. Okay, that's very important. Please remind yourselves, and we can also remind each other. The second thing is we learn to slowly we learn to look at all our challenges, all our problems as opportunities for growth, not as problems. Of course, headache is a problem, back pain is a problem, depression is a problem. But if I start looking at every obstacle as a stepping stone for growth, then the whole perspective of how I will deal with it will change. And this is exactly what Yoga Sutra is talking about. Like dukkham is the gateway to transformation. Without dukkham, I don't know whether we will all be here sitting and talking about all this. It is our own pain or the pain that we experience in the world that brings us to yoga, saying that I want to understand this better and I want to come out of it and I want to help other people. So seeing dukkham or any kind of challenge as an opportunity for growth, which means that I encounter a problem. And sometimes I may see the problem as coming from outside of me. Okay. But I have to learn to look at it as a problem that has come for me and not something that is happening to me. And invariably, the external situation is only a mirror for me to look at myself. So, like Lekha was sharing about her student and journaling after and saying, I'm also like that. So, learning to look at ourselves and not from the idea of blaming oneself or beating oneself up, but simply asking, where am I like that? Okay? Where is that coming from? With great curiosity and affection for oneself, not from a space of judgment or self-flagellation. These two aspects are very important. Looking at a problem as an opportunity for growth and transformation, and seeing the problem as something that is being generated from within, not consciously, but actually asking, where is it inside? These two things I want us to remember and go back to again and again, because that will give us a very clear path to work with Yoga Sutra. Yeah? Because it is very difficult for another person to tell you, maybe this is inside you. I don't know what I told Lekha at the time. But it's very difficult even for a teacher to say, okay, you're complaining about your mother-in-law or whoever, but do you see that quality is inside you already? It's very difficult for somebody to say. And if somebody says, it will be like that, the anavadyam will not be respected. It can be very hurtful. What do you mean? How can you say that that quality is inside me? That's such a deplorable quality. I don't have that quality. Immediately we will react. But if we ask ourselves gently, initially that part of you will say, no, that's only there. I'm so irritated, how could I hold that quality? But if I'm so irritated, it means that I do hold that quality. So I allow it to sink in and then reflect, and suddenly it will pop. Yeah. So these are the things I wanted to add. And of course, we have a little time, like 13 minutes. If anybody has any question, if there's anything that you would like us to revisit or work with in these next 6 months, or even the process, if you have any ideas or suggestions, we are most happy to take it and work with it. We can go back to the gallery.
Can I raise something? My connection is really bad, so I have to switch off my video. So I have a suggestion, which is I think it would be very helpful to have some kind of a reflection practice, as Lekha was explaining, like you explained about the different characteristics of the sutras, and Lekha explained it in a different way. And I think it would be, and I was thinking that it would be very helpful if it is a reflective practice. Maybe you have it, but to think in our lives, where are we? I can't remember the exact words right now, but each word, like how does it play it in our life? And I also feel like when we are in a group space, like in a video, we are sitting together, and when there is a practice of 5 minutes to reflect, even like the one Lekha did in the beginning, it's very helpful because the space kind of holds the intention for us to go deeper. Whereas when we go back and to find the space and time to do it, sometimes it's not that we cannot make it possible, but it would be helpful if we can do that kind of a reflective practice in this space.
Yeah, we are planning. I think every session will have some reflective questions for you to work with, some practices to work with, and come back and share.
Yeah, okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Everyone in this course are on the WhatsApp, like are in the WhatsApp group. Jen, you're not there. Could you join? You won't join? You can, right? Because we're thinking it will be good to have that space very active for the sharing. Like, let's say we give you some reflective exercise to work with. There's only so much we can cover in a 2 hour live session. And we also have to discuss more about the healing perspective. So it will be good if we can start sharing on the WhatsApp and connecting with each other. That will make the learning very rich and more effective.
I'm going to take advantage of the slight silence in the room and just say that we have created a feedback form, especially for those of you who have been part of the phase one Shravanam. We will send the feedback form to you tomorrow. And if you could actually fill it in and guide us as to what you would, what you liked in the previous phase, and what is it that you would like to see incorporated in this phase so that it supports your journey better. It'll really help us to design the program in such a way that it is more meaningful for all of us.
It's a completely anonymous feedback. We are also going to restart the Yoga Sutra chanting session, so we'll be announcing that soon. Maybe give 2 different time options, one in the morning for people in the southern hemisphere and one session in the evening. So that will start soon. July we will begin that. So please take advantage of these sessions so that you can learn to chant the sutras by heart. Doesn't matter if you don't know the language. You can learn to chant the sutras by heart. They will stay with you forever.
Yep.
Yes, Nirmal.
Yeah. So as I was reflecting on the healing last session also, so I was just reading what are the different perspective of healing, what people say and what I also imbibe. So just let me share 2-3 lines from Mother, Sri Aurobindo's mother. Healing is both spiritual and discipline and bodily education. The body must learn to receive peace. It must learn not to surrender to panic. It must learn that the disorder is not its deepest truth. The deeper truth of the body is its capacity for harmony. Healing therefore involves faith, surrender, right care, conscious attention, and the gradual awakening of the physical being to a deeper force. So it resonated with me so strongly.
Can you please share it in the WhatsApp group?
Yeah, I will do that. I will
Okay.
just share the overall reflection. I will share
Yeah.
that. It's the one paragraph in that.
Thank you.
So I like the line, it must learn not to surrender to panic. So most of the time our reaction instead of response becomes a panic reaction. So she has put it beautifully, not to surrender to panic. Yeah.
Beautiful. Okay, no questions, nothing to share. Shall we close with again a few sutras from the second chapter? But I will chant one sutra and everyone can chant Atha Yoga Anushasana after. If you want, you can unmute and chant. It's okay. It will be a little. Tapaha swadhyaya Ishvara pranidhanani kriya yogaha. At least some people unmute.
Atha yoganuशासनम्
Samadhi bhavanarthaha klesha tanukaranarthascha.
Atha yoganuशासनम्
Avidya asmita raga dvesha abhiniveshaha kleshaha.
Atha yoganuशासनम्
Avidya kshetram uttaresham prasupta tanu vichinna udaranam.
Atha yoganuशासनम्
Anitya ashuchi dukkha anatmasu nitya shuchi sukha atmakhyatihi avidya.
Atha yoganuशासनम्
Driddarshana shaktyoho ekatmata iva asmita.
Atha yoganuशासनम्
Sukhanushayi ragaha.
Atha
yoganuशासनम्
Dukkhanushayi dveshaha.
Atha yoganuशासनम्
Varasavahi vidushopi samarudhaha abhiniveshaha.
Atha yoganuशासनम्
Te pratiprasavaheyaha sukshmaha.
Yoganuशासनम्
ध्यानहेयाः तद्वृत्तयः
Yoganuशासनम्.
So let us continue with the Anushasanam of the Yoga Sutra. Finish with a prayer.
Saris, before that, I wanted you to share that story about Desikachar sir, where he said that if I was lost in a desert and the only thing that I would take with me is the.
We can start the next session with that. Asato ma sadgamaya tamaso ma jyotirgamaya mrityorma amritangamaya. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Thank you, everyone. So meet you on Tuesday or next Sunday.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.